The following is a Candlepin Stars and Strikes rebroadcast featuring some of our most memorable programs.
Stars and Strikes doubles. From Park Place Lanes in Windham, featuring outstanding Candlepin bowlers from all over New England. Stars and Strikes doubles is produced in conjunction with the New Hampshire Candlepin Bowling Association. And now your hosts, Doug Brown and Dan Murphy.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Park Place Lanes here in Windham, New Hampshire. Doug Brown along with Dan Murphy, and we're here for Stars and Strikes doubles, and of course it is week one of a brand new 4-week series. But before we continue and introduce some of the bowlers that we're going to be seeing in this doubles series, I want to take a second to explain what you just saw, which would have ordinarily been the first week of the 4-week series in singles. We had an injury to one of our bowlers who was unable to compete, so we had to basically eliminate the first week of the 4-week series. We will explain that a little bit later on as we move on in this program. But for now, doubles is the matter of business, Mr. Murphy, and we have 5 teams hoping to become the last team to qualify for the doubles tournament of champions.
That's right. That quest begins today, the 6th and final spot for that tournament of champions, and the place is buzzing about those 2 tournaments coming up not in the near future, really.
Just a few weeks away, and we have several bowlers here in this particular doubles ladder who have not been here all year or who have never been here before, so this could provide for some interesting matchups.
Jack Sanuik just told me, he says, you didn't explain who bowls first or what, and we take it for granted that some of them have been here, so I says, I'm going to tell the boys that when we break that just the format and what we do, and I'm looking forward to it. One more spot.
All right, let's meet the 2 teams. First of all, our number 5 seeded team, from Bow, New Hampshire, Dan Brodeur, and his partner from Newport, New Hampshire, Larry Valcourt.
And Dan comes in averaging 120, and that all-important roll-off score was 676. And Larry Valcourt, 124 average, and his roll-off score 663.
Dan and Larry have both been here previously on either one of the 2 shows during this season on Stars and Strikes, but they are both hoping now as a team to move up the ladder. They've got a lot of work to do, though. Both of these teams would have to win 4 consecutive programs in order to make the Tournament of Champions. The team they'll be challenging today are number 5 seeded duo from Quincy, Mass, Jack Sanuik, and his partner from Nashua, New Hampshire, Ron Ouellette.
Okay, and Jack comes in averaging 125, his roll-off score 691. And Ron is averages in 119 and 654.
And of course, prize money on the line. We'll be moving up toward the big prize money later on in this series. But of course, the important thing is which one of these 5 teams will move on to the Tournament of Champions. Now, you haven't met the other 3 teams yet. We'll do that, introduce you to those guys, and also get our 3 strings of bowling underway on Stars and Strikes doubles right after these messages. Don't go away. Welcome back to Stars and Strikes doubles, and now, as promised, a look at the other 3 teams that we'll be seeing in the weeks to come. The winners of this match will be back next week to face Mike Sargent and Stan Mayo. Stan Mayo making his first appearance with us. In 2 weeks, Mark Gregory making his first appearance will be here with Dan Valcourt, Larry's brother. And our number 1 seeded team, a formidable one indeed, Dan, Joe Ashline and Steve Vadney combining for that 1369. Again, the bowlers roll off separately, but the scores, when added up, 1369, and Joe Ashline and Steve Vadney will be the number 1 seeded team, and they await a chance to move into the finals. But right now, Dan Brodeur is ready to go, and we're going to get this first match of this 4-week series underway.
A lot of Stars and Strikes experience in that number 1 seeded team.
Yes. And a lot of Stars and Strikes experience right here in this man, too, and he exhibits it right away with the first box strike for Dan Brodeur.
Just right in the 1-3 pocket, just tripping the 4-pin. That's the way to start the match off. Oh, that was a lob, and
well, the good news is he only lost 4 because the ball was off target enough that Dan really didn't get much of a break on it.
Well, you know, he might have been a little disturbed that lane 32 didn't set the pins back up for him when he reset it. And comes right back, though, with an 8-pin drop.
So that's an 8 fill on the strike. And a 10, 28 start for Dan Brodeur. And now that will lead us to Jack Sanuik.
Yeah, we'll have Jack Sanuik go over on lane 31. Start off, we're having a problem with lane 32.
Jack Sanuik hasn't been with us for quite some time. This is his first appearance this season here on Stars and Strikes. I was talking to him before the show began, Dan. He was just saying that he's had some close calls, but just hasn't been able to finish in the money. But he did this time, and he starts with a spare.
Pretty tough competitor, Jack Sanuik. He's one of those bowlers that very seldom will beat himself. Gonna have to go out and knock down more pins to beat this gentleman. It's kind of a mix. This team, Ron Ouellette making his first appearance with us. Of course, Jack Sanuik has been with us, as Doug said, a few times. And that's a lob there too.
Wow. So that is an 8 fill. Or rather a 9 box.
Lost just one.
The fill was 8. And lane 32 seems to be back in order now. Larry Valcourt will start out on 31 and then switch up back over, and he's got a spare leave on the 5-8.
That one, buddy, got the benefit of the wood. Actually dropped that behind the foul line, but was able to clip the wood and clear out the 5-8. Mini break there for Larry Valcourt. Dropped that one a little bit too.
Short. Yep.
Four horsemen left. 1, 2, 4, 7. That's what Larry's looking at. Looks pretty good. Oh, the 7 pin's going to stay.
Wow. $10, 54 for the team of Brodeur and Valcourt through the first 4. And now we get our first look at Jack Sanuik's partner, Ron Ouellette.
Port Cider.
Right in the pocket. How about that? First ball here on Stars and Strikes for Ron Ouellette, and it's a strike. Not too shabby. Crosses over.
That was very close to a lob.
Didn't turn out too badly.
No.
And a 10. And just 1 pin separating the 2 teams after the first 4 boxes.
Each team getting marks in the first and the third. And both of them have one of each, strike and a spare.
And Brodeur crosses over to the Brooklyn side and leaves a very solid 6 pin with nothing around it. Got it. So Brodeur and Valcourt marking in the odd-numbered boxes so far.
And Danny's picked on the 1-3 pocket, got a strike, 1-2, got a solid 9-pin drop, and back in the 1-2, and this time a strike.
Oh. That close to a double strike.
Absolutely. He got a solid 6-pin on lane 32, and there was just no doubt about that one. I just hope he saves some for Thursday night because he bowls on my team.
Jack Sanuik looking at a bit of a mess here.
1, 3, 4, 7, 9, 10. And everything but the head pin. It's cleared out of there.
Jack from Quincy, Mass. Does a lot of his bowling at the Ouellette in Waltham and the Lucky Strike in Dorchester. And Jack works as a division comptroller for State Street Bank. As I mentioned, this is his first appearance this season here on Stars and Strikes on either show.
There's
And
the
right
ball.
back in the pocket.
Just the 9-pin stands. The only thing that slows these 4 balls down is the wood rolling. They're ready to go. As soon as they pick that second ball up, they're ready to go. So
Spare
again,
in the 6th for Jack Sanuik. Pretty good match going right now.
absolutely. Larry Valcourt looking for possibly double strike. Partner left one up for him in the 6th. Off the target. 1-2, 6-10.
Larry Valcourt is the manager of Sunset Lanes in Newport. He and his wife Terry have 15-year-old daughter Robin. Larry lives right in Newport, and he and his brother, who both qualified for this taping, have both been here before. The bowling family. A 9-box for Larry.
Gives them 100 through 7. Decent opening game, at least on their way to one. A couple more marks and it'll be an outstanding opening game. Larry having trouble with the head pin with that first ball. 1 and the 9 pins are left.
Larry was here in the last Stars and Strikes doubles series. In fact, this makes his 3rd week in a row because he was with us last week in the championship match. Paired with Tim Lipke, they were defeated by Norm Bork and Ed Emerson, who of course moved on to the Tournament of Champions field. So Larry will be trying to take that one extra step, this time with a new partner, Dan Brodeur, and he gets a 10 in the 8th.
110. Through 8 boxes. And now Ron working on the spare put up by his partner, Jack Sanuik, in the 6th. Oh, that was a lob. That was a lob. He's going to... So that's 3 out of 4 bowlers now.
Only cost him 3 pins. He was flush on the head pin. So, again, the lobs have really not been too costly, at least so far. But it's unusual that we would have 3 in one game. We go months sometimes without having one.
Of course, we haven't had the opportunity to see Ron Ouellette that often, but Dan Brodeur and Jack Sanuik are not the typical bowlers that let the ball get out there. It happens. It happens sometimes.
The big factor there, of course, even though he only lost 3, was the 3 would have counted double because he was filling a spare. But on the other hand, at least he didn't lose an 8 or a 9 drop. So instead, the spare goes empty, and Ron Ouellette will try and put up another one here in the 8th.
It's going to be a tough one. 6, 7, 10. Piece of wood in front of the 6, 10, and another one to the left in front of the 7 pin. Going to try that one. Not to be.
So Dan Brodeur and Larry Valcourt now all of a sudden have a 20-pin lead with 2 boxes to go here in game 1.
Really the only benefit of 1 extra mark, too.
Coming up after our next break.
Just right back in there again.
Yes. Whew.
Wow.
That's his 3rd strike already.
And there's no chintzy ones here either. He has a solid 9-pin drop, and over goes the 4-pin for, as Doug said, his 3rd strike of this string. And there's another one. Wow.
Well, Dan Brodeur's now rolled 6 boxes, and he's got 4 strikes.
He came to play.
I guess so. Pull that one a bit. Yep. It's still 150 plus this ball.
Well, Turned to a good opening game into an outstanding one.
155 as Dan Brodeur hangs up 45 pins in the last 2 boxes. Started to say after this next break, before we begin the second game, we'll run down the list of qualifiers who have already made it to the doubles tournament of champions. 5 teams are already in. The last team will come from this group.
Oh, what a shot by Jack Sanuik.
The 5-7.
The ball left his hand. Of course, I got an advantage of being almost directly behind Jack. Boy, that's going to be close. And it was better than close. It was right on. This time right through the middle, and let's see.
Well, there ought to be a law.
I know. I just think of the same thing. The degree of difficulty should add a few extra pins on the fill.
Especially because the team really could have used a boost with a couple of big boxes in the end. They will settle for a 112, so it's a 43-pin advantage for Dan Brodeur and Larry Valcourt, as Dan Brodeur had the strike ball working here in Game 1. We'll be back with more in a minute. Here are the 5 teams that have already qualified for the Stars and Strikes Doubles Tournament of Champions, brought to you by Tri-State Megabucks. That tournament will begin here on Stars and Strikes Doubles 4 weeks from today, as will the Singles Tournament of Champions, April the 19th. 2 full hours, 5 straight weeks, starting at 12 noon. Those are the 5 teams that have already qualified, and one of the 5 teams that's in this particular series is also going to qualify, and we're in the middle of our first match right now. We've got Ron Ouellette beginning the second game. Ron's partnered with Jack Sanuik, and they are trailing after an outstanding first game by Dan Brodeur and Larry Valcourt, particularly Dan Brodeur, who had 4 strikes, including a double.
Imagine if he was bowling singles, what a game he would have had. Well, he wouldn't be through it yet, but he'd have a good start after 6 boxes.
Well, Dan, in the 6 boxes that he rolled, had 6 marks. He actually had 1 open because he bowled the extra box because of the strike in the 10th. 9 for Ron. Ron making his first appearance here on Stars and Strikes. Ron is from Nashua, and he and his wife Marie have 3 children, Rebecca, Ralph, and Paul. Ron works at Comerick's, does most of his bowling at the Leda Lanes in Nashua. By the way, again, for those of you who were with us during our first hour today, between noon and 1, you probably noticed all the Christmas decorations. And we're wondering what was happening. Well, ordinarily it would have been the first week of a 4-week series, as we have here on Stars and Strikes Doubles. The match you were scheduled to see was Frank Rose of Atkinson, New Hampshire, against Gary Carrington of Plastow, New Hampshire. Frank Rose would have been making his first appearance with us here on Stars and Strikes, but right before the show was to begin, he hurt his back. And how about Larry Valcourt coming from behind to get the strike? Don't often see that. The head pin, the last one to go.
The 4 horsemen. Watch the 10, the 6, the 3, and the wobble with the head pin, and finally over it goes for the strike. This is when you usually throw doubles, because you get one lucky one, and then you bury the ball in the 1, 2, 1, 3, and get the double. Well, he's going to try the same thing. And he almost did it. 1, 5, and 8 pins left for Larry.
So at any rate, instead of seeing that Frank Rose-Gary Carrington match, you saw a rebroadcast of an earlier match that was an outstanding one indeed from around the holidays, when Paul Berger rolled his 437 to beat Tim Lipke, and Paul Berger, with that 437, still stands as the #1 qualifier, and he will be the top seed in the Singles Tournament of Champions, which also begins on April 19th. So we hope you enjoyed another look at that show, and hopefully we'll have Frank Rose back sometime again real soon. And next Sunday at 12 noon on Stars and Strikes, you will see Gary Carrington against Joe Ashline. Gary Carrington, the #4 seed in that group. Joe Ashline, the #3 seed. The other 2 bowlers in that series, Neil Gosselin from Lynn, Mass, is the #2 seed, and Glenn LeBlanc, who's been with us many times recently from Peterborough, New Hampshire, is the #1 seed. So they're the bowlers that you'll be seeing at noon starting next week.
6 fill in that spare by Jack Sanuik. 1, 2, 9, 10 left. A couple pieces of wood. One behind the 1 and the 2 might give him some help on the 9, but no, doesn't give him help on anything. Head pin and the wood go out. The other 3 pins are still there.
Well, the first 12 boxes, Dan Brodeur and Larry Valcourt have thrown 5 strikes already.
Somebody in the crowd just said, right where you left off, Dan. I left off with a double strike, so. It's right in there again. 5-9 for Dan. See where that wood settles down there. Might give him a little bit of a problem. And it's going to. He may get by. He may be able to see the 5-pin clean. He may be able to just take a little piece of the wood with the 5 and have the wood come off the wall. Let's see. Oh, he get by it. Wow. Oh, is he sharp? He is really sharp today. He was able to get by the front piece of wood, hit the 5. The 5 takes the 9. And it's another mark.
Dan was last here on Stars and Strikes doubles just a couple of months ago, teamed with Peter Pereira, and they were in the championship match against Phil Clough and Tom O'Brien and lost by 2 pins, 381 to 379. So both Dan Brodeur and Larry Valcourt have been in championship matches this season on Stars and Strikes doubles. Larry's just last week, so they're both trying to get back there and get a victory. That's the first pin that Dan Brodeur has left standing today. And we will take a break, come back with more of the middle game as Brodeur and Valcourt in the lead. Ron Ouellette trying to get something started for his team here at about the halfway point.
It's one way of getting started. Everything but the 5, and I thought he might get that piece of wood to roll back and knock the 5 out of there too, but
there it is. Spare for Ron. The 6th mark for the team. Brodeur and Larry Valcourt have 9 marks already. 5 of them have been strikes.
oh, the wood turned maybe just a little too much. 2-4-10. Let's see where that wood ends up.
Oh, yes,
just
he got
enough.
Nice shot for Ron Ouellette as he puts back-to-back marks up there. Maybe that'll get the team started. Larry Valcourt now. And again, using that backdoor action to take out a couple of extra pins, but that might have cost him that time.
The crowd tried to take out the 10-pin for him, but it didn't work.
Well, this time he lost the head pin and the 2-pin, and he's lost his angle a little bit.
Throws the ball pretty hard, though. He's going to throw out the 4-7. That depends where that ball ends up. Might just go up and over the top. Oh, it did. Behind the 10-pin.
Joe Paglia working the lob line for us here on Stars and Strikes doubles.
That was a 9-box. Just clipped the piece of wood in the channel before it knocked the 10-pin down. So.
And Joe has been busy on that lob line so far.
Yeah,
he's getting his
wake-up call.
Yeah, he's getting his money's worth today.
He's on the edge of his seat.
Oh, Larry Valcourt with another big strike. That is strike number 6 for the team already. Just about halfway through the match.
As I mentioned before, no cheapies. These things are going out of there in a hurry. All 10 pins.
Jack Sanuik working on a spare, and he's upset with himself.
Yeah, he missed the head pin. 4 horsemen right with the 7-pin. That's what he wanted to do with the first ball.
Sean Grandy is keeping the big scoreboard for us here at Park Place Lanes, and as he always does when he's here, he comes up with some intriguing and interesting stats, and through the first half of the match he passed us a note that the team of Brodeur and Valcourt are averaging almost 8 pins per ball on the first ball of each box. The team of Sanuik and Ouellette averaging just about 6 pins per first ball, so that 2-pin difference is a telling factor, especially, of course, you throw all the strikes in. That makes that number go way up.
That is a real neat stat. I wish we had the time to do that. Well, these BU grads, they're right on the ball, you know?
That's right. He's not even a math major. I'll give you an idea. Dan Brodeur now working on a strike. What else is new?
He's been able to hit that lane 32 pretty good, and he's, well, a little full that time. Ball broke a little bit sharper at the end. Leaves himself the 4 and the 10. And let's see, the wood just to the left of the 10-pin. Well, it's a tough call. That's what I try to carry him the ball off that, but he's going to have some help from behind. Now, that's exactly what he did. The ball came back, but didn't clip the 4-pin.
Dan is from Bow, New Hampshire. He and his wife, Marlene, have both been made multiple appearances here on Stars and Strikes. Dan works as an industrial electrician for Concord Litho Company and does most of his bowling at the Boutwells Bowling Center in Concord.
Where was that again?
Well, you know, it's funny. I knew you would say that, as you always do. But we have these forms that the bowlers fill out, which is where we get all this pertinent and worthwhile information that we pass along to you. And one of the pieces that we have them fill out is a little line that says, lanes where you bowl most often. So Dan filled in Boutwells Bowling Center, and then underneath he wrote in the address, the telephone number, and then a little note that says, ask for Dan Murphy anytime. So I think you owe Dan a little favor or two. Maybe
I think when
the
Thursday night league comes around, he's like, I think I'm going to pay for my bowling tonight, Dan. I mean, way to go, Dan. Light hit for Ron, wants some action down there, but he's going to have a makeable spare with the angle of the wood in between the 3 and the 6. If he's on the 3-pin, he's going to have a real shot at catching those 4 plus the 7-pin.
Well, the last time Ron was up there, he put 2 spares up, but the team only gained 8 pins.
It's another lob, and he knew it as soon as he threw the ball. He's going to lose 3.
I started to say, Dan, that they had the double mark the last time Ron was up there, but they turned out to gain only 4 pins in those 2 boxes. So that's going to be a 5 box for Ron Ouellette. And again, the lob problems continue for all the bowlers, really. Ron trying to make something happen, and there's nothing doing down there. And it'll be an 8 box. A 104 for the team, 216 2-game total. Already Brodeur and Valcourt at 257. Wow. That was a hard 3-drop.
It was.
Larry Valcourt.
Really punished that head pin. Spread eagle plus the 8-pin in the back. It's not making much noise down there right now.
No. This 9th box has been a problem for everybody, it seems. Wow. Matching 5 boxes in the 9th. How about that? That's definitely a first here on Stars and Strikes. Big strike to recover, though, in the 10th. That is strike number 7.
You see, overcorrected a little bit, caught the 1-2 pocket, and was able to nudge the 6-pin over for another strike.
It's the strikes that are doing it for the team of Brodeur and Valcourt because they only have 4 spares in 2 strings.
They don't have the chance to shoot any spears to get the strikes.
Half Worcester on the first ball, but of course it's a 2-ball fill. on the strike. Watch out. No, it's a 2 fill. So, a 5 box and then a strike with 2 on it. Well, that was kind of a weird finish.
It was.
Those last 2 boxes. The team of Brodeur and Valcourt still in command, and we'll have game 3 in a minute. Dan Brodeur will lead things off in game 3. It's so tempting to say, well, they've got a comfortable 58-pin lead, but we have seen stranger things happen.
Absolutely. 3, 6, 7.
Oh!
What's that? Dance that pin over there, end over end.
Somehow got it right between the 7-pin and the pin already in the channel without hitting it. And that's a 9 box.
That's a 9. I thought we were going to have a tough call there because that second piece seemed like it was a little bit on the lane, but Dan threw it. Look at that pin spin. Almost stood it back up again.
And Dan catches the head pin just right. Gets a 9 drop, leaving the 3-pin. And he's right there for the spare. That is mark number 12 for the team of Brodeur and Valcourt. Jack Sanuik need to try and get the offense started, and he'll shoot at the 6-pin. Jack Sanuik's last time here was back in February of '91 when he won his first match as the number 2 seed, beating Brian McKinley, and then lost a ladder championship match to Tim Lipke by 7 pins. The last time Jack was here in doubles competition was about a year and a half ago, and he combined with Peggy Tosi in mixed doubles, and they won 4 straight matches to win a series championship. That mark by Jack was the 8th for the team, and they need him in bunches right now. Be a 7 fill.
Looking at the 1, 2, and 10, as Doug alluded to, he's just got to keep putting marks up. Oh, that close. Heavy on the head pin, took the 10, but left the 3, the 2-pin, I should say, and clears that out for a 10 box.
Next week here on Candlepin Stars and Strikes doubles, our number 3 seeded team, Mike Sargent and Stan Mayo, will be here to face the winners of this match, and we will have a first next week. Stan Mayo is from Windsor, Vermont, and he is the first bowler from Vermont here on Stars and Strikes. Ever expanding. So that means we're only looking for Connecticut and Rhode Island for New England states now. And we're still waiting for our first bowler from Canada, too. I'm waiting for one of those bowlers to make the long drive down and...
I mean, it's only 10 or 12 hours
Yeah.
for a roll-off.
Sure. And then if you win it or
Come back.
finish in the top 5, you got to come back again. And 9 box for Larry Valcourt.
I'll tell you, some excellent Candlepin bowlers up in Canada.
Well, I know every time you and other bowlers have been up there, they're always amazed by the coverage, especially that Candlepin bowling gets up there.
It's really big. I always thought you go to Canada, hockey is the sport, but boy, I'll tell you, Candlepin bowling is real popular, and they really build it up. I mean, Peter Flynn went up and had a press conference.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, he put an exhibition match on. They had press there, and they had press conference and everything.
And what kinds of questions did they ask?
I don't know.
Larry Valcourt with the spare in the 4th.
Hope not some of those political questions. My goodness. Let's keep it to Candlepin bowling.
By the way, if you haven't heard us speak about it earlier here on the program, Peter Flynn is doing very, very well.
Yeah. It's like a full recovery. He's back bowling and bowling well, and I'm sure in the near future we'll see him right here in Stars and Strikes. Of course, it'll be next season now.
Right. And Ron works it out for a 10. They've chopped 4 pins off that lead, but it's still sizable for Dan Brodeur and Larry Valcourt, and they've got a spare up here in the 4th. Ron Ouellette trying to match it, and he puts the big strike up. That is just the 2nd strike for the team of Sanuik and Ouellette, and Ron Ouellette has both of them. The first one was in the first box he rolled here on the program. We'll be back. 6 boxes to go here on Stars and Strikes Doubles, week 1 of our 4-week series. We'll be right back. Dan Brodeur is working on a spare in the 4th, left by his partner, Larry Valcourt. It was their 13th mark of the match. It would seem a pretty good bet to get a 400 triple in this.
Well, it would have been until you mentioned it, but
Yeah, that's true. They need a 126 in this game. They will have to run up a little bit in the last 5 boxes to get it. Of course, the final 3-string total in this match does not mean as much as the 3-string total 3 weeks from today in the series championship match.
we mentioned the leaders. Did we mention the scores? Sure we did or we didn't?
We showed them. We didn't really talk about them,
All
but
right.
we did show them.
Well, the bottom 3 scores, 373, 381, 387. I guess those are definitely in jeopardy. That's another mark. The top scores of Carrington and Ray at 448. We'll watch the replay of that spare. Just plays the wood and slides everything to the left. And Morrill and Quinn at 412. And then it drops down to Bork and Emerson 387, Clough and O'Brien 381, and Morgan and St. Pierre at 373. So I would say they're all 448 is real tough, but
Well, Jack Sanuik would have loved to have thrown a strike on top of the strike that Ron Ouellette left for him, and he's not able to convert the spare either. .66 through 5 for the team. And again, they're opposite a spare. Dan Brodeur and Larry Valcourt doing just what they need to do, put up a spare now and again in this 3rd game to preserve their lead.
everything but the 6-pin for Jack.
Spare up for Jack Sanuik. So we begin the final rotation now, each bowler with 2 boxes remaining. And Larry Valcourt will work on a spare left by Dan Brodeur. Oh boy. Baby.
That was about the quickest one we've had, and we've had some quick ones in this match. Watch these 10 pins collapse. Boom.
8 strikes for the team.
Like that description? Boom.
John Madden.
4 horsemen left. 1, 2, 4, and 7.
And a 9 box. 106 through 8. So Dan Brodeur, when he steps up, will need 20 pins for 400. Here's Ron Ouellette. A left-hander working on a spare left by Jack Sanuik. Misses the head pin, but he'll shoot at the 4 horsemen.
A short backswing for Ron.
Really no backswing at all.
Really. Gets the 1, the 3, and the 10. Leaves the 6-pin. You wonder how it can happen. 10 box, 92 through 7. And just wishing it's over.
Well, the team of Sanuik and Ouellette has 10 marks right now in the match, but they have put marks back-to-back only once.
They call in the damage control after the first game. That was the difference in the match. Brodeur and Valcourt opened up a big lead and just never looked back.
9 box for Ron, so he finishes his efforts for the day. And now Dan Brodeur will try and reach the 400 mark.
Well, they got a break there and cleared out the triangle 4-7-8. Just leaves the 10 pin. Got a nice little guide if he's below the red line, or I should say to the right of the red line. Ball should carry him off. He's a little too high though. He's right on the red line, actually a little left. 10 pin stays. Actually could do it with 2 10 boxes.
Right. And there's one of them. That's 390.
But I'm sure the score right now is not as important as the W. Now move on. Take on Sargent and Mayo next week.
Well, this will be a hard-working 10 if he gets it.
Larry's brother in the background. No luck, Dan. I would have went for Larry. I suppose that maybe there's a little jousting going on, so they may meet each other in a couple weeks.
Yeah, Larry's brother Dan is in that number 2 spot with Mark Gregory. Oh, and he misses.
399.
399. Well, he knew it. He knew what he needed.
Yeah.
399 for the team of Dan Brodeur and Larry Valcourt. They have already clinched the win, of course. Jack Sanuik with his final 2.
I know what Jack's thinking. Sure, I'll get extra pins now. The match is over. It looked like he was going to left with 3-2 split. The 6-10 goes down. Piece of wood falls in nicely in front of the 2 pin as he converts the spare.
Everything will happen for you now.
Oh, yeah.
There you go, sure. Big strike on spare.
There's no doubt about that one.
This will make the final score a little more respectable. 131 with 2 balls to come.
Oh, the 7 pin will probably go.
And Jack gets the spare, of course. 40 pins in the last 2 boxes, and Jack's got a little grin on his face. 141 final game for Sanuik and Ouellette, but it's not enough to come back from a sizable deficit in the 3rd game. Brodeur and Valcourt, Larry Valcourt that is, will advance to next week's show, and we'll tell you about it right after this. And back on Stars and Strikes doubles, Ron Ouellette and Jack Sanuik are here, and we have checks for you guys, $150 splitting 5th place prize money. And Ron, I know your first appearance here. I'm sure you're happy that it's in the books, but must have felt good at least to go up there with that first ball, throw a strike.
It did. Very nerve-wracking, though.
Well, it was just
I had fun.
Yeah, it was a tough match too. Obviously, Dan and Larry put up that big score for you against you, Jack, and that made it tough.
Well, it's they got off to throwing many strikes, and when you throw strikes, you don't have to worry about picking up spares. And then when you watch them throw strikes, you don't get as many spare leaves, it seems. But hey, they bowled well. Give them credit.
Well, again, congratulations for both of you, and this will be it for this season. But we hope to see you back real soon in the fall when the new season begins.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Ron Ouellette and Jack Sanuik. Thanks very much. And now we'll call up our winners, Dan Brodeur and Larry Valcourt. Keep the applause going for them because they threw a 399 to beat Ron and Jack's 357. Congratulations, guys. And boy, it seemed like every time one of you needed to get a mark, you did. Dan got it started early, and then you were able to pick up later.
Well, he sure did. It's nice to have a partner come out and jump right on him like that. I got going a little bit, but, well, you know, I threw my share, but
yeah, you
he did his job, that's for sure.
You had all the strikes working. I believe you finished up with 8 strikes combined. But what I want to know, Dan, is what happened in the last box? So you were 1 pin away from 400 there.
Yeah, well, Jack put the noose on me. He said I needed a pair of 10s for 4, and I choked it. Yeah.
Well, obviously at that point you knew that the win was already there, and now you get to come back next week. Mike Sargent and Stan Mayo will be your opponents, and we're looking forward to it as you try and make it 2 in a row. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, Larry Valcourt and Dan Brodeur, congratulations, guys. And now we'll take a look at the ladder so we can show you what is coming up for next week as we bring Dan Murphy back in here. And Dan, the name Mike Sargent certainly has to strike fear into the hearts of most Candlepin bowlers. He'll be teamed with a guy who's a newcomer here on Stars and Strikes doubles, Stan Mayo. and they will be the opponents next week for Dan Brodeur and Larry Valcourt, who proved to be a very formidable team on their own today.
Absolutely. They just had that, like Jack said, they had a strike ball working, and it takes a lot of pressure off you, especially when you jump out to that big lead and you just coast. Seems like everything goes your way.
All right, again, next Sunday at 12 noon, we will resume with Week 2 with Stars and Strikes at 12 noon. It'll be Gary Carrington against Joe Ashline. And then here on Stars and Strikes doubles, it'll be Dan Brodeur and Larry Valcourt going for their second win in a row against the team of Mike Sargent and Stan Mayo. So until next Sunday at 12 noon for 2 full hours of Candlepin bowling here on the Winds, for Dan Murphy and the whole crew, Doug Brown, so long from Park Place Lanes.